Hello, my name is Mackenzie Dean, and in this video, we're going to be zeroing in on one of the key roles of the drummer, which is dynamics. So I'm going to kind of break this into two sections. The first is going to be kind of conceptual, like what is the concept of dynamics? How do we want to think through those things? And then the second half is going to be practically. What do we do actually on our instrument to make those dynamics come across in a way that is guiding towards the band and in a way that fits well with what they're doing. So first, let's think conceptually about dynamics. An analogy that I find really helpful is thinking about whenever you were younger and you would get crayons, you didn't want the 8-pack of crayons, you wanted the 64-pack. So think about dynamics in this way. You don't want to paint a picture musically that only uses soft, medium, loud, loud, a 4-color song. We want to paint a picture with 64 colors, so that using all of these pieces of the drums, you're able to nuance dynamics in a way that really no other instrument can. You can sort through, well, what if I play this cymbal with this drum? What does that sound like? And what if when the song's down, I completely don't play at all? Or maybe I play more subdivided here. So we want to think conceptually about a 64 color range of dynamics. And then the other kind of overarching concept to think about is translating things like playing loud or playing with energy into a different way of thinking, which is going to be playing full. So we don't want to think about playing loud, we want to think about playing full. A lot of times drums, a good way to think about it is I'm either going to fill space or I'm going to create space for everyone else. Kind of one of those two options is where you're going to land. So whenever a worship leader says to you, we need more energy in this spot, or we need just this spot to be more full, a good way to think about that is less about volume and more about subdivisions. So instead of simply, taking your stick height from here to here and just wailing on a cymbal, think about, okay, I'm playing, straight quarter notes right now. What might actually give this song a lot more energy is me playing 8th notes or me playing 16th notes, and that's going to make that that space either more full, or you're going to give space to other people to be able to play. And that's a lot of what laying that dynamic foundation looks like. So the kind of two concepts we want to think through are playing with a 64 color range of dynamics, and then also thinking through playing loud versus playing full and what that means as far as energy goes. So that's kind of the conceptual side of dynamics. And then I want to kind of touch on a few different ways practically that you can execute that 64 color range in playing full. The first one is going to be builds. Builds are a huge part in worship music, and I can't think off the top of my head of a song that doesn't have a build in it. So you play these constantly, and there's going to be kind of two disclaimers I would put on a build. One is going to be that you don't want to give it away at the very beginning. So sometimes it's really tempting to give a big snare hit or a big cymbal hit at the very beginning of a build, kind of signal like, oh, something's going to change. But what that actually does is kind of limits your ability to go anywhere. So we want to think through builds as, think about a plane taking off, right? So a plane doesn't just gradually go straight up like this. It actually goes ground, 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 and then it goes up. So a build is going to look more like this. And then the second disclaimer on a build is going to be that not every build is created equal. So you're going to have some builds, that are extremely long in some songs, or it might have just a bar of a build. But it's really tempting for us as drummers to just be like, okay, build. I'm going to play on these two toms in the kick, and then I'm just back in. Or I'll just do, like for me, a temptation is to always go snare and ride on every build. I really like the way that sounds. But that really limits me on that kind of color range that I was talking about, that it's actually better to listen and say, okay, maybe this build needs to be toms, and then I add in the snare the last 2 beats or something like that. So thinking through what specific builds or what specific drums or pieces of the drum set and what subdivisions are going to work best in that particular spot in that particular song. The second tool dynamically to use, so first is builds. The second is going to be fills. So fills are kind of like one of those things that for drummers we really like kind of get excited about, because it's a chance to kind of exercise your creativity or play something maybe more challenging than just a groove. Um, and so that's good, and we should be excited about those and playing them well and playing some interesting things. But the purpose of a fill is going to signal to the band and to anyone listening that something's about to happen. We're going somewhere. And sometimes that might be that we're going somewhere bigger, and it can also be we're going somewhere smaller. So I've noticed that I tend to neglect when we're going smaller. I don't think much about how I'm going to get out of a big part of a song down to a quiet part. But I would say it's important to give good fills to the band that give them good solid cues of where you're going. It shows them, okay, that fill sounded like we're going somewhere strong, or that fill sounds like we're about to end the song. The last tool that I wanted to talk about is going to be simply using using this equipment, using your instrument for dynamic purposes. So clearly, like one of the easiest tools that you have is your sticks and stick heights. So it's really easy to think like just to play the same height the whole song and just, I'm playing on quieter parts of the drum set or something like that. But really thinking that, okay, between this cymbal, I can play this at so many different stick heights, and I can do that on all these different pieces. That's how you're going to paint a more interesting dynamic picture, is by using the drum set to your advantage and using the sticks to your advantage. So in summary, just to review, we talked about the 64 color picture dynamically. We talked about playing full as opposed to just playing loud. And then tools to do so, we talked about builds, fills, and using just the instrument and your drumsticks itself. Okay, so now I'm going to show you an example of how not to do a build. So this is going to be with a big hit that gives it away and not a lot of energy going anywhere. Okay, and this is going to be an example of a good way to do a build. Not the only way, but a good way. And this is a good example of a fill that's going to a down part of the song or an ending part of a song. And this is an example of a fill going from an up part of a song to an even stronger part of a song.